Welcome back to the program. So today we're going to be having to interact in our own way. But before we get to our conversation, which I'm very well aware you've probably heard about, the United States putting Nigeria on a travel restriction list. And we're going to talk about what the economic implications will mean for us as a country in Nigeria. Before we go there, let's take a look at the interactive session between the Senate and the MDAs concerning the 2026-2028 MTEF FSB.
With the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, leading the federal government's presentation. During the session, senators expressed concerns over delays in the implementation of the capital components of the 2024 and 2025 Appropriation Acts.
So since 2025 budget has been enacted as a law, not until that is either amended or repealed. And when you say you are taking it over, we assume that you are taking exactly what is in the act to now create the next Appropriation Act. So we need that explanation. Then just take note, Honorable Minister.
What is making it impossible for you to implement the budget? Because Appropriation Act is a law related to each year, which you must comply with. Since you have the money, there's no request you have made to this Senate that has not been given to you, and we adopt as a rubber stamp. So what is your problem? Why are you rolling over budget of 2025 to 2026 instead of extension?
There's nothing wrong, like you said, and I agree with you absolutely, that it will amount to waste if you start a project and you pay 30% of that project, and in the next budget, that project is not captured, money already spent on it is as good as thrown away. So the logic of continuing, I understand, but the language of rollover, I do not. So I think I understand you to mean, and that should be the case, that never again should we implement more than one budget.
Responding, Minister Edun assured the committee that full funding of the 2024 capital budget has been secured and released. He also disclosed that about 30% of the 2025 capital allocation is currently available for implementation.
When we look at borrowing, we have roughly 152 trillion naira outstanding. And that figure was about 70 trillion naira in 2023 or so. But what accounts for the difference? 30 trillion, as we all know, was the bringing into the light, bringing into the books of the government of ways and means that were previously just ignored and kept outside. Another 50 trillion was accounted for by the fact that the exchange rate doubled. I mean, central bank in its monetary policy focused on clearing backlogs and bringing in foreign reserves, and we know how successful they have been.
Looking ahead, the minister announced that the federal government has issued circulars to all MDAs, mandating a revenue optimization program for 2026. The initiative prioritizes automation and technology, requiring all government payments to be processed through digital platforms to improve efficiency, transparency, and revenue collection.
Right now, funding is fully available for the 2024 capital budget that has been finalized and is in the gateway up to September. Funding is available for a portion, and the other portion, the plan is to roll it over to 2026 budget. Likewise, for the 2025 capital budget, funding has been made, warrants have been issued, and funding is available for 30% of that budget, with the plan, with the cooperation and the support of the National Assembly to roll over the 75%.
Other officials include the chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Zach Adedeji, and the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Atiku Bagudu, also briefed lawmakers on challenges affecting budget implementation.
All mentioned here today that we have 2024. We are in 2025. But you have 1 year revenue. Use it to manage 2-year budget. So even if you met the 1 year revenue, how will you hear the Honorable Minister say, I'm paying 2024. Whereas you are taking 2025 revenue to pay 2024. So when Mr. President said, when we said, because as of the work we've all done, that we've met revenue target, which is annually. But you are using 1 year revenue to manage more than 1 year budget. That is why you are seeing the outstanding.
Some of the measures we have taken have implications that were not immediately obvious. The impact of the 22.7 trillion naira securitization is still being felt in terms of interest costs, particularly rising interest costs. But more importantly, not only rising interest costs, almost the inability to go to the central bank when we have demand beyond the legal limits.
The agreement marks a significant step towards strengthening Nigeria's fiscal planning and economic stability ahead of the 2026-2028 budget cycle.
Well, that was quite a very, very, what's the word to use? Insightful package, because you see, very important questions were asked. Why are we rolling over the budgets? I have these questions as well. Why do we have to roll over the budgets? Why are we having to do an appropriation act for 2025, but somehow it keeps going in? We just even finished some of the 2024 capital projects in 2025. These are some of the issues and things that happens at this meeting. So do well, of course, to follow up. The Senate has its own channel where you could watch these proceedings and get insights on what's happening. So you're not, unaware of what's happening with your economy and the budget. This is a time for the budget, and of course the Senate President has said that this week the budget will be presented to them, and of course in due time there'll be public hearings on it and you can have your input. But before that, we have a very short time, about 5 to 6 minutes. I'm just going to talk about briefly on the economic impact of what will likely happen. This ban by the US, what's the economic impact on us as a country? So let's start off. If you're not aware of what has happened or what is likely to happen. Now, recently, the federal government, America put Nigeria on a list where people have, had to have a ban recently, and we are now on that list. And according to the stories and what we've come to understand, who does it affect? If in case you're not aware, under the new policy, Nigerian nationals who were planning to travel to the US on common non-immigrant visa categories, including B1, that's for business, B2, tourism, F, academic, M, vocation, and J, exchange visas, will be barred from entry unless already holding valid United States visa. Now, according to the US summaries, Nigeria was placed on the list due to persistent security challenges, visa compliance concerns such as relatively high visa overstay rates for some categories, challenges in information sharing and identity management with US authorities. Now, what could be the economic implications for us? Reduced remittances and FX inflows. Now, we rely heavily on diaspora remittances, which bolster foreign exchange reserves and support household consumption. The economic impact is lower forex inflows could weaken the naira, increase volatility in currency markets, and worsen exchange rate risk. Households dependent on remittances may see declines in disposable income, reducing domestic consumption. Another impact is weaker trade, business, and investment ties. Now, while the U.S. isn't Nigeria's largest trade partner, restrictions signal a worsening investment climate. Part of the latest U.S. action explicitly cites identity management and screening concerns, which can raise perceived risk among investors. A deteriorating diplomatic and security narrative increases risk premiums and may prompt capital flight or slower foreign direct investment. Economic impact could be Nigerian firms seeking U.S. capital, partnerships, or export markets may encounter higher financing costs. Foreign investors might delay or reduce investment commitments to Nigeria due to political and regulatory risk. That's 2. Now 3, decreased mobility for labor, students and professionals. Stricter visa processing and limitations on non-immigrant visas can affect labor mobility. Nigerian students and professionals may find it harder or more costly to travel to the US for work, study or business. Tech, education and service sectors that rely on international exposures may see reduced skills transfer and collaboration. Loss of opportunities for human capital development, that's an economic impact. STEM training, when we say STEM, science, technology and mathematics, engineering and mathematics. Elite degree programs. Lower movement of professionals that support knowledge inflows and skills upgrading. Now number 4, tourism, travel and miscellaneous service sector losses. Even partial travel restrictions affect international travel flows. Travel agencies and airlines reported losses when similar tightening hit other markets. So expecting that might happen for people in the travel agency tourism industry, there might be some losses in that department. Now, tour operators may see declines in bookings to and from the US, reducing foreign exchange from travel receipts. Economic impacts of that is revenue losses for tourism, hospitality and international logistics sectors. Potential contraction in support industries, that is ground transport, accommodation and travel retail. Now the 5th one, reputational and risk perception goals. There's a adage that says perception is stronger than reality. Is that a thing that might happen here for us as a country? US policy signals carry broader risk implications. Inclusion on a restrictive list, especially one linked to security concerns, can influence credit rating agencies. And you know, we've been doing quite well in these agencies for a while now with the S&Ps and the rest of them, and we've even come off the grey list for the FIU. Will that in any way now impact us as our listens and our ratings on these agencies going forward from this ban from United States? Now, investments analysts and multinational firms risk assessment. So are we going to see any downward ratings due to this restrictive list that we've been put on by the United States? What is the economic impact of this? Higher borrowing costs for sovereign debt and government projects. Potential reduction in portfolio inflows and stock market volatility due to risk aversion. So yes, it's a ban, but somehow, in most cases, everything in this world has an economic impact on a country. There's always a ripple effect of certain things. And this is a ripple effect on that restrictive list that we've been placed on by the United States. If I'll go back through them, just highlight the captions again. Reduced remittances and FX inflows, weaker trade, business and investment ties, decreased mobility for labor, students and professionals, tourism, travel and miscellaneous service sector losses, reputational and risk perception cost, and of course, policy and structural effects. These are some of the economic impacts that we're likely to face due to us being placed on a restrictive list by the United States. That's how much we have for you this morning on the program. For more of our news programs and documentaries, do to follow us on social media platforms and on our YouTube live stream. I've been your host, Chiamaka Nwanfor. Bye for now.